recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Certainly one source of terrorism is Iran. We're entering into this deal in which we're supposed to waive the sanctions that were enacted to deal with their nuclear program. But in doing so, we're going to be waiving the sanctions that were designed to discourage them from engaging in terrorism. The most specific example of this is the Iran Sanctions Act, which in its terms, which Congress declared, we had 3 major reasons, only one of which was weapons of mass destruction, and weapons of mass destruction includes nuclear, missile, and biological and chemical concerns. I'll strike missile from that because the structure was the weapons, not the delivery systems. But still, nuclear was 1/3 of 1/3 of Congress's announced reason for adopting the Iran Sanctions Act. Under this deal, it's going to be waived. What I'm concerned with is the specially designated nationals list, which is the no-go list for international finance. And we've got a lot of countries that are on the list because of their involvement in nuclear activities that we never bothered to put on the list because of their involvement in terrorist activities. For example, Bank Melli, which has been involved with Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Quds Force, etc. Dr. Shelley, are you confident that the United States will put Bank Melli on the terrorist list? Or are we going to ignore their terrorism in the support for terrorism in the future because they used to be involved in proliferation activities?
I think that's a great question. I think we have to do a lot of very careful analysis and make sure that we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And so
I want to assure you, Bank Melli is the stinkiest bathwater out there. This is not a beautiful baby, but I want to go on to something else, and that is there are real benefits to remittances. They go to the poorest people in the world. They do more for development than our whole foreign aid program. What can we do to make sure that people who want to spend $400 a week are able to do so at reasonable cost without, I mean, yes, it's possible ISIS could get such small amounts of money could benefit a terrorist organization, but frankly, I don't think we can prevent ISIS from getting its hands on $400 here or $400 there. Are we going to, I'll go back to baby and bathwater. The baby is legitimate remittances. Are we doing too much to restrict remittances to families in Somalia, Iraq, and other places? Dr. Schilling?
in the past, we've done some superb, or the Treasury has done superb analysis of when remittances are not being used for their intended purposes. That is, that people are generating too many remittances based on their income, which leads to a geographic targeting order. And that's where I'm put this emphasis on research and analysis, in that if a few individuals are sending $400 a month, that should not be restricted. But if you're finding that there are nodes that are being abused where people are sending much, much more, and that can be identified, then you've got a problem. But it's not that hard to identify.
TSA is a trusted traveler program. Should we have a system here in the United States where you can fill out a form to the government, here's who I am, here's how much I make, I plan to send roughly this amount, depending upon circumstances, to my relatives in such and such a country, and be certified as trustworthy when you lay out a plan that makes sense?
I'm not as concerned about the individuals being trustworthy, but much of what goes on behind illicit finance are facilitators. And so we need to be focusing on the facilitators, and when we see that they are being abused, and go after them rather than the small fry who are sending their money.
And I would add, I think it was Mr. Modell talking about being tough enough. The Iraqi government that we support with blood and treasure is paying people in Mosul because they were on the civil servant list, and as far as we know, is providing free electricity for which ISIS is free to collect a bill. So we've got to start treating this economics element seriously. I yield back.
Gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Barr, recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and